Stay connected to the world with Channels TV Podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com. Click on podcast, select the program of your choice, and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Tap the expertise you trust. Touch the stories that touch you. Anytime, anywhere.
As usual, we're up bright and early and with strength. Monday opens with optimism. Good morning and welcome to your perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. And what a weekend it was, right? Particularly if you were in Ondo State. But we'll get into all of that shortly. Hi, Jeffrey.
Hi, Bukola. Good morning and welcome to the program. We're broadcasting live from Lagos, Nigeria, which is Nigeria's commercial nerve center and Channels Television's global headquarters. And of course, our job is to do what we love to do. The month is already running now. Bukola, what's today? 18th?
18th.
Yeah, I'm counting.
Yeah, I got it right.
You got it right this time. So I was thinking about something outside Nigeria. Since Donald Trump won the election on November the 5th, he's making a cabinet appointment and all of that, you know, creating new departments. And the reason that is quite possible because is going to be sworn in on the 20th of January. That's when the tenure of Joe Biden will come to an end. But already we know who is going to occupy what position in the cabinet. So there's already work in progress. And that's what happens when democracy is stable. When there's certainty as to a process, when there's transparency, when there's credibility in the process, such that he knows nobody has gone to the tribunal, that will head to the Supreme Court. Because what happens in Nigeria is that the reason perhaps our presidents-elect do not make these kinds of appointments because they want to be sure they have their mandate. So they wait for those 6 months or so period that the law allows for adjudication and litigations to go on for the person to defend his mandate, because for most of the time, especially with our democracy, besides what happened in 2015 when it was Goodluck Jonathan versus Muhammadu Buhari, it always ends in court. So I'm just thinking about Bukola, and I said that's supposed to be the beauty of democracy. And there are layers to how that came to be. First layer is internal democracy. Internal democracy within political parties is the first layer. And a lot of Nigerian politicians have failed in that regard. Literally, the two last elections, Edo and Ondo, when it comes to the primaries of literally all the major, as we call them, political parties, there were issues upon issues. Look at what happened to the Labour Party, for instance. The governor-elect, who is the incumbent, won with about 200,000 votes ahead of the PDP candidate, who won by 117. But Labour won just got by 1,000 or so votes. Because the first list that came out, it was Ayo Olorunfemi, and then we understand that he voluntarily withdrew, and then we had the Biseni. Ayo kept saying, I did not voluntarily withdraw. My documents were forged and all kinds of things. Just a day or 2 days before the election, INEC, the court decided in the favor of Ayo Olorunfemi, and then INEC reflected that on Friday before the election on Saturday. So it just speaks to how our politicians need to realize that what you do in your political party is not just about your political party. It reflects the entire system. So that if you do it properly, we're not going to be having some of these issues. I remember Edo, for instance. It was one of the most embarrassing elections, a primary election in Edo State with the APC, for instance. The first election came out, conducted by the governor of Imo State, where we had somebody scoring 40,000, Dennis Idahosa, and then Monday Okpebolo scoring, I think, less than 1,000 or less than 100. But at the end of the day, when the proper things were done, conducted by Basio, who was the deputy chairman of that particular election, we saw that they swapped places. Monday Okpebolo won, and then they made it also the deputy governorship candidate, and now they are the governors and candidates.
Well, you know.
So at the end of the day, internal democracy is quite important.
Well, Jeffrey, besides the internal democracy element of it, but there's also the public accountability and scrutiny, that is a virtue of democracy in Western democracies that, African democracies should emulate. And, you can glean that from the debates, that the presidential candidates put themselves through, allowing public scrutiny of their ideologies and how they want to proceed with the economy. And that is visibly lacking in our own democracy, where presidential candidates deliberately shun public debates, and where there's a evident lack of planning in the outlook of the government, even after they have won elections. I doubt that very much the fact that litigations affect the outlook of governance, and that's the reason they're unable to proceed with certainty and confidence in appointments into cabinets. I doubt very much that is the reason, but more of political considerations and payback for those who have helped to win elections. And we can see that in the last two administrations, where there were waiting times of 1 month to nearly 8 weeks before we saw cabinet appointments made. And we can also see how that has affected governance, to the extent that a lack of planning for a policy as important as subsidy removal, for instance, has led us to this point where we have had almost a 10% increase in inflation figures from what was announced in January 2024. How the subsidy removal policy, has affected everything else. It also goes to the lack of planning and, and understanding of what the administration sets out to achieve in terms of deploying policies that will impact positively on the economy. So many lessons to learn from Western democracies. And Jeffrey, you are the figures man. You can tell us about how inflation is a global thing, but how Western democracies have been able to manage inflation.
They manage it. They have a target. They bring it down. Like the Eurozone, they brought it down approximately to around 2%, which is the target for every. At some point in some of the Western countries, it was about 9%, and they were able to beat it down in 2 years or less than that. But as it just oscillating, in fact, we were dealing with stagflation. Okay, but let's bring you up to speed. Bukola, what are we doing today?
The economy is also part of it, but we'll touch base first of all with the Ondo election. Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa returns elected, winning a record 366,000 plus votes. So we're going to be keeping our eyes on that process and seeing just how free, fair, and credible that election was, and what lessons we can learn for future elections, and what lessons we can learn, for the element of off-cycle elections in a democratic landscape.
Absolutely, not just that. We saw the NJC, the National Judicial Council, wield a big stick on some judges. Some were suspended, others were told you have to retire immediately. So what exactly does this mean for the judiciary and the image of the third arm of government? We're going to break that down with the senior advocate of Nigeria right here on the show.
And finally, with preparations for the passing of the 2025 appropriation bill already underway, it will be interesting to know the projections of the content of the bill and how it will aid economic growth. And economists will be on the program to provide expert insights.
That's not all. Remember, Bukola calls it a hand of fellowship. Our social media of choice, I like to call it.
Calls it a hand of fellowship.
So go to X, #CTV Morning Brief, #CTV Morning Brief. Share your thoughts, share your insights, share your wisdom, share your videos, share whatever message you have. Your comments as well. We'll be here to amplify it as much as possible. So we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll go for our top stories, and I'll bring you up to speed with what you've been saying on social media. Join us again.
Welcome back, and top on the brief this morning, Lucky Aiyedatiwa of the All Progressives Congress has emerged winner of Saturday's governorship election in Ondo State, defeating his closest rival, Agbola Ajayi of the People's Democratic Party, with a margin of over 200,000 votes. The incumbent governor of the Sunshine State polled 366,781 votes, while Mr. Agbola Ajayi scored 117,845 votes, with the APC winning in all all 18 local government areas in the state.
Ayedatiwa Lucky Orimisan of APC 366781 for the Labour Party Olorunfemi Ayodele Festus 1162 1162 Ajayi Alfred Agbola of PDP 117845. That Ayedatiwa Lucky Orimisan of APC, having satisfied the requirement of the law, is hereby declared the winner and is returned elected. Signed by Professor Olayemi Durotimi Akinwumi, the returning officer for this election. Thank you and God bless Nigeria.
And in the wake of the results of Saturday's Ondo governorship election, Governor Lucky Ayedatiwa says his success at the polls is a call to deliver more good governance for the people of Ondo State. Speaking to reporters after he was declared winner of the election, Governor Ayedatiwa promised better days for residents of the Southwest State.
I campaigned across the entire 18 local government. The only candidate that went through or traversed the entire 18 local government, not just the capital city of the local government. All communities, almost all the communities, we visited them. We see the roads, the way they look like, the environment they are living in. We heard their voices, we read their messages, and we listened and responded to questions and their yearnings and aspirations. So they have that belief that their hope is in me, that areas before that they never had hope before now, their hope has been renewed by the kind of campaign and promises, not just promises alone, giving example, making reference to what we have been able to do in the last 10 months. So they are willing and they believe in us. They believe that whatever we say is what we do. We will not tell them what we cannot do. We will do all that we have promised them within the limited resources available to us. And that is exactly what they have translated into vote. The love they showed to us during campaign, they came out in the day, at night, in large number, huge crowds. Some areas we got there at 10 p.m. in the night. They were waiting in the rain. They were waiting in the rain to receive us. So excited about our coming. And their heart leaped for joy at our appearance. And they have translated that love.
And to other election matters now, the People's Democratic Party recorded a landslide victory in the Zamfara state local government election, winning all 14 chairmanship seats and securing every councillorship position. The chairman of the State Independent Electoral Commission, Bala Aliyu, while announcing the results, described the elections as free, fair and credible, attributing the success of the exercise to the collaborative efforts of security agencies, election officials and voters. Over in Ogun State, the All Progressives Congress swept all 20 chairmanship seats in the state local government polls. Meanwhile, the opposition Labour Party in the state condemned the exercise and called for the cancellation of the results, while also vowing to approach a competent court of jurisdiction to challenge the outcome.
We call on OCX to cancel the entire election for being in clear violation of electoral guidelines of Ogun State electoral laws. If they fail to do this, we will reject any result that is announced and put the necessary machinery in motion to challenge this challenge in the court.
Away from election matters now, President Bola Tinubu has departed Abuja for Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, to participate in the 19th G20 Leaders Summit, slated for November 18 and the 19th. The summit will bring together leaders from the world's largest economies to discuss critical global issues. In a statement by presidential spokesman Mr. Bayo Onuga, he says this year's summit will focus on the theme Building a Just World and a Sustainable Planet, with key discussions on global poverty, hunger, energy transition, and sustainable development. And the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, is urging leaders in the country to adjust their mode of operating, especially as it concerns the citizens, in order to build honorably. Mr. Dogara, who has described the situation in the country as a crisis one, advised those in leadership to speak with the people instead of speaking to them. And to catch that full interview, you can watch our program Newsnight later on. And there's more coming through on Top Stories this morning. In a surprising climax, an inspiring one at that, to the Miss Universe 2024 contest, Nigeria's Chidinma Adesina has emerged the first runner-up of the 73rd edition, making her the first Nigerian to finish that high up in any edition of the competition. Chidinma, who came second only to Denmark's Victoria Kaja Thelvig, had earlier contested in Miss Universe South Africa, where she was forced to withdraw before the final following a nationality row. She then contested in Nigeria and eventually claimed the Miss Universe Nigeria crown, from where she represented Nigeria on the global stage. Congratulations to Chidinma Adesina. And to the economy now. Vice President Kashim Shettima says Nigeria's economy will grow in leaps and bounds by 2025. Vice President Shettima, who made this known during a one-day retreat for presidential aides and heads of units in his office, cited improvements recorded so far, including crude oil production reaching 1.8 million barrels per day. He urged presidential aides and Nigerians to assist President Bola Tinubu in delivering his mandate. And in sports news, Nigeria's Edo Queens came from behind against Mamelodi Sundowns to earn a 2-1 victory to secure their place in the semi-finals of the CAF Women's Champions League. Goals from Ememesien and Mary Mamudu in added time sealed an unforgettable victory over the defending champions. The victory pushes the Edo Queens closer to winning the trophy for the first time. A very busy weekend it was indeed, with quite a number of events, from the Ondo election indeed to local government elections in Zamfara and Ogun State, and of course the big one came through from the Miss Universe pageant, with Nigeria's representative with an interesting story emerging in the first runner-up, the highest, according to reports, that any Nigerian has attained so far in that pageant. So what are you saying about these big stories? Jeffrey joins me now for a review of your thoughts.
Absolutely, Bukola. So we'll get started with the big one that happened on the weekend, which is the politics, and it has to do with Lucky. I heard that you got Lucky. I know someone was asking him about that name.
Jeffrey, maybe you should change your name to Lucky.
The
history of Luckies in this country.
I'm cool with my name.
Good luck, Ebele Jonathan, who was also a deputy governor.
I'm very proud of my name. I'm happy my parents named me Jeffrey, and I'm grateful they did. So the lucky ones should stay with their lucky. We'll all be lucky at some point. So let's get started with what you're saying. As Lucky Aiyedatiwa remains governor of the state after that exercise, Tunde is saying, I wish I could see this on screen. Congratulations once again, my amiable governor. Simple and straight.
And short. Okpayemi also says, congratulations, Your Excellency. May your tenure be peaceful, impactful, and prosperous.
This is coming, the name, you don't have a name here, but you say congratulations, Lucky Aiyedatiwa, my governor. Kindly help attend to Akure Ijare Road. I wish you good health and divine wisdom to lead Ondo to greater heights. And
this user with an interesting name, Olublis, says, congratulations, sir. It's now time for the magic wand to be waved over Ondo State. I am here with 5 developmental programs prepared for your administration, sir. Please don't ignore us, the youths of Ondo State. We know what to do. We can help you. Quite a lot of goodwill there.
Yeah, he's even applying for maybe contract or a job. I'm not sure. Orire says, I believe in your government and I pray God strengthens you and continue to help you accomplish all your plans for the people of Ondo State generally. Well, congratulations to him yet again, and once again, his victory is landslide, 200,000.
More than the vote of the closest challenger.
Runner-up, and of course, this is the highest, at least in the last
8 years.
The last 8 years. Okay, so, I understand we have his, this is the moment where he was announced victor.
Of the election. And there you have it, governors of other APC states. We can see the governor of Lagos State there, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, the governor of Kwara State, the governor of Imo State, even the governor of Cross River, all the way.
I think I also saw the governor of Edo State.
Is that the national chairman of the party?
Yes, Abdullah Ganduje.
Yeah. So it's a big APC celebration.
So
there.
I'm seeing a couple of governors. I call it the governor's invasion. Literally. I think that's Babagana Zulum as well. I think I'm just seeing a couple of them. They were just okay.
Away from that now to another talking point.
Yes.
This time.
Hold on. I think this was the moment. Just hold on, Bukola.
Okay.
Just a minute, please. Let them savor the moment.
Can we have audio as well, so that we can just savor it completely?
I don't think they are. Okay, because what I was saying is that off-cycle election usually has this invasion of politicians and governors. For instance, in Edo State, we didn't even know Akpabio, the Senate president, was in the state. It was during the victory we saw that Akpabio, the Senate president, was there. So I can imagine the pressure. Anyway, Bukola, you have the next one.
And by the way, you also had National Assembly members in Ondo State for that election, according to reports
everybody has to support their party.
Oversight mission. But of course, the APC members amongst them will also be celebrating with their comrade who has won this election. So away from politics now to the economy. What seems to be the economy is the wife of the president who is appealing to market women not to increase food prices as Yuletide approaches. Interesting one.
I don't know how this goes. Well, let's hear your thoughts.
Okay.
The president's wife is saying, please, don't increase the price of rice, don't increase the price of beans. I just want to hear what you're saying. This is coming from Jim Baba. It says, Adia Mama, that's how we say it in Nigeria, not Mama. Adia Mama, please help us beg our president to reduce the hardship. Tell him to reverse the devaluation of the naira that he floated and see the magic. Everybody will be forced to bring down their prices. If dollar goes down, fuel will come down, transportation costs will reduce. Simple. So the person is saying, it doesn't just work like that. Do what you have to do, and we'll do what we have to do.
Appeals are not economic policies.
Okay. Yeah. Kola, you have the next one.
Uche Okoro is the next user, and Uche says...
It's an epistle, by the way.
Yeah, we'll try to summarize it or read just a portion of it. The situation reveals a gap in governance that needs immediate attention. Citizens deserve a proactive approach from their leaders to address inflation and provide viable solutions that ensure food security during this crucial time. Constructive measures and accountability must take precedence to avoid burdening the populace further. I believe we got the point of your comments, Uche.
Ugochukwu says, what are you going to do about it to make sure they do not increase the price of food in the market? But if I may suggest, just subsidize all the food items in the market for this period of time.
Usman Kufena says, it's an economy run by begging. It's better for her to beg her husband to raise. Well, we just must be more clement in our, in our comments this morning. Maybe we should just go to the next talking point.
Nigerians are dying. Well, she's just saying the president should be spoken to. It's the president, is her husband.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Anyway, let's go to the next one. CBN to sanction banks with empty ATMs but are selling naira mint to cash. The things that happen in this country used to amuse me. So you go to the ATM, you can't see money. But we understand that some banks will sell the naira to people that are doing
but Jeffrey, you know, evidence abounds about you know how the naira is out there in the economy, in public space. You just go on social media.
Our money supply is over
during
100
the
trillion.
weekend Owambes, what we call parties on Saturdays. You see at those venues the free flow of the naira, and you don't see filthy notes. You don't see worn out, torn notes. You see brand new notes being sprayed all over the place. Perhaps more discretion is being exercised now because the scrutiny of the Anti-Graft Commission is on the public space as well, you know, to rein in on those who are abusing the naira. But the truth is that brand new notes are out there, and how come there are no currencies in ATMs? But befuddles me.
Yes, they are not at the ATM, but they are in parties. Good one. Divine says, or no, let's just say Divine, that's your name. No one is talking about those selling naira mint cash at parties, but let's crucify POS operators. That the reason ATM don't have money.
God Pekin says, I usually do go into the bank to withdraw over the counter. The minute they want to start with their madam, please use the ATM. I reply with, please load the ATM with cash. So, Mr. Yemi Cardoso, this is begging for answers and for a response.
Okay.
Let's keep our eyes on those banks who are defaulting.
Chigoze says, CBN should flood the economy with cash. We already have too much cash in circulation, according to the CBN. Scarcity induces hoarding, which leads to these sharp practices. With cash available across all channels, the motivation to trade in our notes will be eliminated. Let the regulator do what needs to be done. I guess that's what we wanted to say. Because I have the next one.
And Right Honorable Williams is the next user. They say this is long overdue. There is an existing law that states that every ATM must have every naira denomination. I think CBN has been slack to perform their duty. What they need is a scapegoat, and every other bank will comply.
All right. Metal says, that's your name, by the way. Right steps in the right direction. Gone are the days when you would just walk into banking hall, I guess, to withdraw and be paid in new mints. Instead, you will be paid with smelling naira notes. However, you will be shocked to find, is it shocked now you wanted to say, I guess, to find out the same elusive new naira notes are being hawked at the parties.
And Jeffrey, are we done with that one?
Yeah, we're done. We're totally done. So let's get to maybe
the next one. It's a very interesting one, Jeffrey.
Yes.
And so this man was nabbed over the weekend by Zone 2 of the Lagos Police Command of the police force. And you know what is interesting about this arrest is that this young man impersonates the Caucasians. He wears a body form that makes him look like a Caucasian, and with that,
like a white man.
Yeah, as a white man, and then he deceives people. I guess the reports say that he's into romance scams, and you know, when he wears it, he looks quite believable. So, what are you saying about this?
So we understand that the police rejected $100,000. That's commendable in this economy.
In this economy,
to him.
That's 10 million naira.
Those are the things we need to be amplifying. All right, Agbola says, if we actually want change in police system as we fight for, moves like this must be given enough accolades whether they believe it or not. Congratulations. Will I say congratulations now? Commendation. Commendation to this gentleman, this police officer. Because it's not as if they are well paid per se or all of that, but he did the right thing and said, no, keep your 100K, I will do my job. I wish I know the name of this police officer. I would like to amplify his name.
I don't think it's one police officer, it's a number of police officers. They were set on the trail.
So police send us their names, whatever their names. If it's a team of policemen, let's have all their names, we'll celebrate them.
And it's not 10 million naira, by the way. $100,000 is 107 million naira.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I have the next one from Afro Connect.
Afro Connect says this is very possible, but sadly, because of their track record, we won't believe it.
Yeah, that's
commendable work by the Lagos Police. The Zone 2 Police Command at Onikon demonstrated real integrity by rejecting 174 million naira bribe from a notorious internet fraudster. So is it 174 million naira or 107 million naira? 100K.
Naira is a dollar is 1.7 now, so that's what it is.
107 million naira.
It's about that. So you just imagine $1, 1.7, why? Sadiq says, kudos to the Nigerian police force for a job well done. God bless them. We had an amen to that as well. Let's talk about Chidinma. Oh, if there's a lady that has gone through hell and warm waters,
and
this lady
has survived without being
she survived.
scathed.
You know what happened to her with the quote-unquote xenophobic, attack on her, if you will, at least not like physical, but what they did to her was not fair. And all the entanglements around whether her mom committed crime, and you know the story. She had to come to Nigeria to win the pageant here, and then head to Miss Universe, and now she won. So she came first runner-up. So maybe we'll get to see the moments.
It was as if there was a petition yet again, as she was about to participate in this competition from South Africa.
She's a girl with 9 lives. So that's the moment. That's beautiful, Chidinma. Congratulations to her representing Nigeria as it is. So this was the moment, I guess, when there were 2 finalists.
And she spoke quite eloquently as well, during this session. Let's have that.
Oh, we missed that. That was the moment.
Okay, we are down to the final 2. Nigeria and Denmark, please step forward.
One of you will be taking the crown and representing women all over the world as Miss Universe. If for any reason the winner is unable to complete her duties, the first runner-up will take her place. Good luck, ladies.
The new Miss Universe is Denmark!
We know she did not win, but we needed to show you that our girl got to the world stage.
Was on the world stage.
Maybe we're trying to pepper them. I don't know what it is. Whatever that is.
But the lesson that we can all learn from this experience is how adversity just keeps pushing you, to the top somehow. So if adversity comes your way, just chest it, as we say.
Yeah, we'd like to reach out and maybe have a chat with that. So this what you're saying, Ben Murray Bruce, the man in charge of all this. Say congratulations to Chidinma, Miss Universe, for emerging the first runner-up at Miss Universe 2024. You have made us all proud. You are a star.
Indeed. Rinu Odwala says, congratulations to Chidinma Vanessa Onwe. They have given her a Nigerian name. Additional Miss Universe and first runner-up for Miss Universe 2024. You are an inspiration to every girl child out there. You can say that again.
Yeah, because I don't blame us. When we see bright spots like this in our country, we will shout and scream because, we have challenges just like every other place. So when we see bright spots like this, we scream. But hey, those are the thoughts we've been tracking on our social media of choice, which is X, of the things you're saying. We've just amplified them. We're going to take all of it, but we took as much as time will allow. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, is our first conversation. It has to do with what happened in Ondo State. History was made landslide victory, 200,000 above the person that came second, and the highest in the last 8 years. Join us again.
Welcome back. And so we start off with the first leg of our conversation this morning, which will be a focus on the Ondo off-cycle 2024 governorship election to see what lessons are there to learn from that process. Of course, some of which would be a record a number of votes polled by the winner, incumbent Lucky Aiyedatiwa, 366,781 votes or thereabout, more than that of the closest challenger by more than 200,000, and of course more than the results polled by past winners in the last 8 years of that election. And of course, there are also other factors to consider, considering the total number of votes polled by the winner and the closest challengers in comparison to what we saw in other elections, which will speak to voter turnout. But before, I get into all of the levels of conversation, we have joining us to give us an aerial view of what transpired on Saturday, the program's director for Yaga Africa, Cynthia Mbamalu. Good morning and welcome to the program, Cynthia. And we also have Mr. Judicial, who has also joined us, public affairs analyst. Both join us via Zoom. Thank you very much, gentleman and lady, for coming on the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
So, Cynthia, I'm going to start with you. We can see that Yaga Africa already put out a statement, more than a statement, really, a document, covering the election, telling us what exactly happened. But I want us to give us an aerial view of the process and the performance of security all the agencies, so to speak, INEC, security agencies, and all of us deployed for the exercise.
Thank you. Good morning. And I think the first thing is to commend the people of Ondo. One, for the peaceful conduct in the elections. This is one of the elections that was relatively quiet and calm. Let's use the word calm. And I think we spoke in the pre-elections, before the election, and we talked about how it seemed there's some sort of tranquility in the state. And I think it's just to commend the voters, the citizens, and also the stakeholders, especially the security agencies and the Electoral Commission, for the work that was done in these elections. And so if we think about the elections, I will begin first with our observation as it relates to the process. And we had shared our findings earlier on Elections Day, that for these elections, we had little challenges related to logistics. We had better management of logistics in these elections, which was why by 10:30 a.m., about 91% of our polling units in the state had opened and the process of accreditation had commenced. And that for us is improvement if you compare that with what we had in Edo, for instance, Edo, which is the most recent off-cycle elections that we had in Nigeria. And then we also had instances where the beavers had issues, but they were resolved as at when due. And so, for instance, in 89% of our polling units sampled, in 89%, the beavers function optimally without any particular issue. And in 10%, when there was an issue with the laptop, with the beavers, they had the tech support from INEC that resolved those issues. So those beavers devices where their issues were addressed as at the period where the program where the election was going on. In fact, so one of the polling units where there was a delay in fixing it and voters got quite agitated, security agencies stepped in to help calm people down and keep the polling unit orderly, while INEC tried to resolve the issue. In one of the polling units, about 1% of the polling unit, the beavers was changed, so they had to be fixed. And so I think for that is just to commend one, the proactive nature within which these responses were done and the timely nature within which they were addressed on elections, especially as it relates to the beaver, because we know that the beavers is an important part of our election. So that was one part. The other for us was also the level of compliance to the rules as it came to results management. So from the point of counting of the polling unit, we had less reports of agents disagreeing with results at the polling unit level. And our data did show that in over 95% of the polling units, both the APC agent and the PDP agent countersigned and received copies of the result sheet from EC8A at the polling unit. Usually, when you have discrepancies at the polling unit, that is when you begin to track that there may be a problem or an issue with the process. And so moving from the PUs to the collation levels, we didn't have major reports of disruption of the process at the local government levels, especially the local government results collation levels. And so if you look at the process, our report, aside from where we had the beavers malfunction and then instances of disability, and I'll talk a bit about that much later, most of the challenges that were observed were addressed on the go. And I think that in itself shows better planning as it relates to logistics. You talked about security conduct. We did have better conduct of security personnel in these elections, unlike what we saw in previous elections. In fact, for the areas I moved around, I had little harassment from security agencies. I know in Edo, we had at one point security officials, the police asking us to come down, show our tags, ask us questions, even though we had our accreditation with us. And we had reports from other groups that experienced that. But in Ondo, we didn't have a lot of that. There were one or two instances where reporters had expressed that they were stopped and questioned. But those were the only instance. And in our data showed that in about 7% of the polling units, the security officials were unprofessional. And so if you think about that, where we had reports of misconduct from security personnel were in 7% of the polling units. Same also for the INEC personnel. So about in 7% of polling units where we got reports that the officials were unprofessional. So that in itself helped us also assess the results. And our data on the result did indicate that for turnouts, for instance, because before the announcement, we had issued our turnout data to show that, yes, we had the data on results already, and we're waiting for the Electoral Commission to announce. And once they announce, we will share our findings on the results. Our turnout had projected about 24%, 24.8% turnout of voters. And that also fell within what the Electoral Commission announced. We had about 24.8%. And then for the vote shares, we had indicated that the All Progressives Congress candidates would receive between 73%, 72 to 75% of the vote. And INEC's data did indicate that the APC candidates received about 73% of the total vote cast. And so it fell within our margin. Can you hear me?
Yes, I just wanted to butt in so I can bring in Mr. Ojo. The projections, apparently your projections aligned with INEC's results. So let me bring in Mr. Ojo on this one. Maybe I'll delve into, besides election management, to things like the politics of it. Straight question is, Mr. Ojo, in your view, you've been following this space attentively. What is the magic wand the APC used that gave them this margin in terms of result? And what did the PDP do wrong?
Thank you, Geoffrey. Good morning, Nigerians. Happy New Week. Yes, I like that question because it affords me opportunity to bring in the supernatural perspective to this victory of Lucky Aiyedatiwa. If you read what was published in the Nation newspaper of 7th of November 2024, which is this month, there is a report which I flagged, which is very interesting. And the report says that the Oruja of Odigbo Kingdom, Odigbo is one of the towns in Ondo State. When the campaign train of APC went there, the traditional ruler of Odigbo, the Oruja of Odigbo, told the campaign team that the Ifa Oracle has chosen Lucky Orimisan Aiyedatiwa as the next governor of Ondo State. It sounds funny, but I was waiting whether that prediction will come true yesterday. And it did. It did. Even though this is not kingship, it's not monarchy, but tells me something, that our people are not as ignorant of what happens, that some people have even gone to consult Oracle to know who will be the next governor of Ondo State, and it happens. That's number one. Number two, when you look at what is in the name, Lucky Orimisan Ayedatiwa, there was a video that trended late last year after the demise of Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, where during the inauguration of Lucky Ayedatiwa as the deputy governor 4 years ago, 3 years ago actually, the former governor, the late former governor, said there must be something in the name. How come this man, you are Lucky Ayedatiwa? Aren't you lucky? Because it was Agbola Ajayi that possibly would have been his running mate in his second term if he had not defected from APC to PDP and then Zeni Labour Party, only to come back to PDP after he lost 4 years ago to now be the candidate. So, again, what is in a name? The number 3 question is, I saw this contest as contest between the federal and the state. President Bola Tinubu perhaps have ambition for re-election in 2027. And having lost, APC having lost Osun and Lagos in the last presidential election, and having lost Oyo and Osun in the last governorship election, will not want to be humiliated with the loss of Ondo to PDP. So they put everything in the armory to fight this electoral war. Resources, you could see the number of governors that were at the Alagbaka government house yesterday. You know, the national chairman of the party was there. Governor of Lagos was there. Opus Odima of Imo was there. Several other governors were there. Party chieftains, senators, all of them were there at the government house. And you could see that they already envisaged that the victory is theirs. So they didn't spare resources, whether it's vote buying, whether it's whatever it is they needed to do, they did. Because they also have issue, APC also have issue with its primaries. Don't forget, there are some of the candidates who contested against Ayedatiwa who were his co-contestants when they had APC primaries early this year. But President Tinubu was able to masterfully reconcile the warring factions. Recall that someone like Senator Jimoh Ibrahim even took the party to court after the party primaries, that there was no primary, and a couple of others also filed suit. But President Tinubu was able to bring all of them together, appeal to them in the interest of the party, let the governor seek a re-election. And that was what happened. You recall that it's online that Senator Jimoh Ibrahim said President Tinubu personally called him that he should go and withdraw his suit from the court, which he did. And someone like Olushola Oke, who happens to have been a frontline aspirant for this position, also got reconciled and was campaigning with Ayedatiwa in the lead up to the election. So quite a number of things were done right by APC.
All right, let's look at other things that may have been done, to ensure that the story is not one of humiliation, as you have said. And I'm going to refer to, the statement by Yaga Africa. I'm coming to you now, Cynthia. From your statement, your document, reports from polling unit observers revealed that INEC polling officials were unprofessional and partisan in 7% of polling units. Your document also captures reports that security personnel were present in all polling units observed, but in addition, they were unprofessional and partisan in 7% of the polling units. Just to mention a few high points from your document, and that element of vote buying, which according to the opposition was massive and clandestine in many polling units. How did that contribute to the record number of polls turned in by the winner and incumbent?
Well, I'm glad you actually made reference to that. Like I had indicated, in 7%, they were non-partisan and they were unprofessional. But the thing around vote buying was actually quite an eyesore in these elections. Our data did show that in some locations you had vote buying that was as high as 20,000 naira per voter. The least amount we recorded was 5,000 naira. So it was between 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 naira that was paid to voters that was used to buy votes in different parts of the state. And then we also indicated that in the pre-elections phase, in fact, the voter inducement had commenced early with both food items and then most importantly, money is given out. And I think this is one of the things we're beginning to see in our elections. And for the Ondo elections, money must have also had its own factor, considering that we had low voter turnout. But the voters that came out, in fact, in some locations, you had voters complaining to observers, even some international observers come. Some of them, it was open, saying, oh, we were giving this, we were promised this, and we're giving lesser amount, or openly collecting the money. You had instances, if you look at our data also, you see instances where we highlighted that we had voters who, after thumb printing, were showing their ballot papers to party agents. Or there was a way they would thumbprint before they put the ballot paper in the ballot box. They would indicate, so someone else could see how the voter thumbprinted on the ballot paper. So those were even signs or evidence to show that, oh, I've done what I ought to do. I hope to get my pay after this. And then I think that is becoming a major challenge in this election, because money was an important factor in these elections. Yes, with all, I know some of the context that may have been provided by Judy, it also played out in the elections, but money was big, and it's unfortunate that money is beginning to play an important role in determining who emerges in the vote in the elections. But let's be clear, it was not a one-sided money vote buying contest. It was a contest rather between the two parties in particular, because our report did indicate that we recorded votes buying done by both the APC and the PDP agents and supporters in the field during the elections. But usually the question is who has more money or more resources to buy more votes, and I think that is where the bigger question ought to come in. However, while we can say that vote buying is becoming a major issue, I think for us it's on the part of the security, because we're expecting to see a lot more arrests of vote buyers or electoral offenders and subsequent prosecution, because that is one way to curb that. That is on the one hand. On the other hand, is a call to the political parties, to the candidates and politicians. We can't continue this trend of using money to influence the electoral process. I think it raises a bigger question on the legitimacy of even an electoral outcome, but also another question around the threat to the democratic process itself, because when voters become so transactional, it also affects how they appreciate democracy and appreciate the value of their vote. So we can say money did have an influence in these elections. But and I think my last point on this would also be that Ondo in the pre-election space was quite calm. So even the campaigns were not as heated as would expect. And we do, from our projection, there seemed to have been some sort of elite consensus at some point that, hey, this guy is completing the term of the former governor, whom we lost sadly last year. Perhaps let him just conclude this term. Our projection actually indicates that we would have a lot more contest in the next elections in 4 years' time. And that is because at that point, there would be less political sentiment and less consensus, would put it that way. We've seen this happen previously. And perhaps whether it's connected to the name or the other, I mean, once upon a time, we did say our former president, His Excellency Goodluck Jonathan, also had the name Good Luck, and that may have also played out. But we also, if you remember, the 2011 elections and the outcome of that elections, and then the contest that we saw in 2015, you would also understand that there are also certain political conversations and political negotiations that also happens in the space. And what is left at this point is for the president, the governor-elect, as the case is in Ondo, to prove to the voters that yes, he did deserve their vote and he deserves to be the governor of the state by providing leadership that is needed in this state. Because at the end of the day, what matters is the quality of leadership, and how that impacts on the lives of the average everyday person in Ondo State.
Mr. Ojo, I want to piggyback on what Cynthia has said. The system should be zero tolerance to all forms of fraud and criminality. Buying votes or vote buying is a crime. Sometimes people say Nigerian election is a battle of the better rigor. So Yaga Africa had mentioned 7%. That is a lot, no matter how you want to look at it, because people's voices were taken away, or there's an enterprise in this whole process, which shouldn't be at the end of the day. The challenge here is that there are 2 or 3 layers of checks. The INEC official is supposed not to be complicit in this. 7% were complicit. The police is supposed to check the INEC and everybody. The police 7% complicit. Now everything will result to the court. And we've mentioned the fact that the number of arrests that were supposed to be made were not sufficient enough to show that there is a move to deter people from, engaging in this, whether the buyer or the seller. All of them are all committing crime. Where do we go from here? Because politics is expensive, we know. But in saner climes, it has to do with adverts and campaigns. But our own is about buying votes. What do we do?
What we need to do, Geoffrey, is to improve the standard of living of average citizens so that whatever is being on offer will not appeal to them. I'm not sure someone will offer you 50,000 to get your vote and you will concede, because I assume you have a well-paying job, and you are politically aware. You know the implication of selling your vote. Majority of people who are involved in this, they don't reason the way you and I will reason. Their own reasoning is that, oh, look at the rising cost of living, look at how difficult it is for me to survive on day-to-day basis. So if I have somebody, I've not committed, I've not killed anybody, somebody is offering me a bag of rice. Yaga Africa flagged a couple of weeks ago that even ahead of Saturday's election, there is a party, I don't want to presume which party it is so that I'm not accused of bias, that one of the dominant parties had started distributing fertilizers and grains, gari, to different wards. And that is voter inducement, which is also criminalized by our electoral law. But how would you resist a situation where over half of the population is in abject poverty, where they don't know where their next meal will come from? We may want to say, oh, it's poverty of ideas and all of that. That is elitist in my own view. There is also the consciousness that, look, even if I don't take, these people will win at the end of the day. Look at the state of infrastructure in Ondo State. It's very appalling. It's very appalling. I saw one of the tweets that a viewer, which was flagged before we came on set, where the person congratulated the governor, but was calling his attention to the Akura-Ijare Road. The state of roads in Ondo is very appalling. And these are the kind of things that people felt such resources should have been used to effect, improve on the state of social amenities, improve on the standard of living of citizens. Then they will be able to resist any attempt at inducing them to vote one way or the other.
Indeed, Mr. Ojo, if an inventory of the funds deployed to vote buying were to be taken, we might be surprised about the amount to be getting over the years. But let's wrap up with this point that is also just as important. And I'm bringing this to you, Cynthia. Just days to the election, we had a conversation on the functionality of the BVAS, the 3-pronged functionality, but the third one, which is supposed to upload the biodata, so to speak, of all voters accredited, which has been disabled by the commission. Of course, if you checked the website, there is a reason provided by INEC, which is delayed synchronization. We wonder how that significantly impacts on the integrity of the exercise, particularly for this exercise and maybe Ondo, Edo election as well. And besides that, from all of the observations of those factors that produce an election that is supposed to be considered free and fair, would you say that all of them have worked together to produce a free and fair election in this exercise, and one with integrity as well?
Well, I think I'll start from the easy one. When we talk about the freeness or the free or the fairness of an electoral process, there are several other factors to look at. Even as simple as how money played a role in the elections impact on how fair the process is, because what it means is it undermines the quality of competition by all stakeholders, because it's about who has most monies and more spread to influence people. And so there are several factors, which is why we hardly use the term, or in our statement, we've not used the term free fair in the process, but it did meet some of the integrity tests that we did set earlier, especially as it relates to the application of the compliance of the rules by the Electoral Commission at the officials at the different levels, especially the coalition level. But you asked an important question on the beavers, and I think I'll look at it from two perspectives. First is the question about the functionalities, and then also how it uploads results on the INEX result viewing portal. The first part of functionality, one of our recommendations actually is the need for the beavers to undergo constant update and upgrade. That is because for these elections, we did see it function optimally in 89% of polling units, but you also had in about 11% where there were challenges with the beavers, and so that in itself indicates that perhaps we need to have better updates on that, because we've recorded higher percentages in previous elections. But we know that technologies, when they are new, they perform a lot more better. But the older they get, you need to improve on it. So I think that was one part we called on the Electoral Commission, that we need beavers to function optimally at all points, at least in 90%, in the higher 90%, or at the polling unit. But the result part you talked about, we need to start seeing the accredited data on the result viewing platform, because it's important for us, because that is the figure we use in determining overvoting. And we, as voters, as citizens, it's important that such a platform, beyond just uploading the result.
Oh dear, just as we're getting to that point where Cynthia was providing very important information as far as the functionality is concerned, we hope that she would return in just a moment to land on that point. It appears as if the network has not been clement at this end beat of the conversation, but we must wrap up at this point so that we can progress on the program. We must thank you very much, Mr. Judicial, a public affairs analyst, for joining us on the program. And thank you also, Cynthia Mbamalu, programs director for Yaga Africa, who took time out of a very difficult schedule to be with us this morning. We believe Cynthia has a flight to catch. Thank you so much, Cynthia and Mr. Ojo, for coming through. I will take a break from this point now and move on to the next bit of our conversation, which is also important for elections as well, and that is the judiciary. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Welcome back. It's now time to talk about what happened in the judiciary. A few days ago, the NJC did wield a big stick, literally, suspending 2 judges, recommending 2 for immediate or compulsory retirement. So this big stick that has been wielded by the NJC, of course, is causing some ripple effects in that particular arm of government and everybody who is a player. It has to do with the perception of that sector, if you allow me to use that word. And that's why we have joining us to break it down for us what exactly this means and how the public is perceiving all of this. A senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Paul Ananaba, joins us via Zoom. Mr. Ananaba, thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ananaba, 2 judges recommended for retirement compulsorily. I know that a particular judge, one of the Sharia court, one of the Qadis, was recommended because he's supposed to have retired like 12 years ago, falsifying his age, according to the allegation, having like 3 birthdays, and they've told him, you're supposed to have retired 12 years ago. In fact, Don't just retire immediately. Every money you've collected in the last 12 years, return it back. And then the issue of basically following the principle of law when it comes to the chief judge of, I think, Anambra, as well as what happened in the judge in River State. I want you to help us make sense of the situation and what this signals to that sector, this action of the NJC.
Okay. By Section 153 of the Constitution, the NJC was created, and the reasoning is to ensure that things pertaining to judges are properly handled, not by the executive, but so that the judiciary can self-regulate and self-cleanse. So that's what the reasoning of the framers of the Constitution would have thought. So that complaints against judicial officers will go to NJC. And daily, if not weekly or monthly, petitions are written against judicial officers in different ways. Now, the NJC has a serious job to do because the people, the composition of NJC is largely made up of judges. So it's judges trying to regulate judges. So that's how difficult it is. Now, you have just seen one of the actions of NJC. But let me start from the point that there were petitions that were dismissed. It means that it's not every petition against the judicial officer that is correct. And the NJC did one, that even lawyers who had their clients to write frivolous petitions will not go free. In any event, petitions against judicial officers are serious matters and should not be trivialized. Let me get to the issue of the judgments again. How will you imagine a head of court? And it's becoming rampant, where judicial officers now, by affidavit, adjust their age, even when nationally, the retirement age of judicial officers has been increased. So, adjusting age of a judicial officer, even for anybody for that matter, what much more a judicial officer is very serious matter. So you see the Chief Judge of Imo State, Chikeka, Justice Chikeka, and the Grand Cadi in Yobe. And I commend the NJC for taking those bold actions. And they got to the real root of it. Not go home and sin no more, but return all the monies that you illegally got. Return them. And as I looked at those decisions, I was wondering, how will these judges, would they have such monies? It's a signpost to other judges. So warning signal to other judges, not to adjust their ages, not to do things like that. A judge, like Caesar's wife, should live above board. That's of a common man. So when a judge begins to adjust his or her age, what else do you want the rest of the society to be like? Mm. And I also want to commend the CJN, the Honorable Justice Kekere, for not sweeping this very serious matter under the carpet. And it will be clear that going forward, every other judge will now have to sit up and know that this type of conduct will not be tolerated. So I'm impressed, and I think it's the way to go, and we should continue on this lane. Thank you.
Senior Advocate, I'd like you to speak to the substance of the matter as delivered by the NJC. The council findings revealed that Justice Aguma committed acts of misconduct by aiding a litigant who obtained a judgment at the FCT High Court Abuja and filed a garnishee against judgment debtors in Bori Division of the High Court in Rivers State. But council sort of dismissed all of the petitions brought against by Honorable Justice Peter Lifu of the Federal High Court Abuja. The allegations against the justice were to the effect that he was induced with a landed property and a bulletproof vehicle and money, but council find that those allegations were untrue. And of course, another allegation was brought by another petitioner, from the Boots Party. But the NJC found that these allegations were untrue. But the fact that Honorable Justice Peter Lifu presided over these cases at the Federal High Court, and the Chief Justice of Rivers State presided over cases in Rivers State. And we know the politics that have influenced some of these cases. I'd like you to speak to the substance of this matter brought before the NJC, particularly with the implications of how this judgment may be perceived by those watching the political events in Rivers State.
Well, perception is important, but substance is more important than perception. There was a case many years back in the 90s when I was a very young lawyer in one of the eastern states. I was a judge that was very upright in that state. This matter came before that judge. So arguments, evidence went on. On the day of judgment, the judge said there was about a medical doctor that killed, that the wife died in circumstance where it was suspected that he killed the wife. The judge said, well, I find no evidence to convict you. But if you actually kill your wife, that's a better judge than me. There is God. Exactly the same day, on 1 year exactly that same date, the man died in the same way the wife died. I don't know what would have happened, but that judge was forthright. So these are things that happen. Perceptions alone are not enough. The NJC will do what it will do in accordance to its policies and in accordance to law. It may not be a perfect thing, but they will do what they can do from what they know or what they can see in evidence. Now, they didn't find Justice Lifu guilty. If they found other judges guilty, if Justice Lifu was guilty in their judgment, they would have found him guilty. Let us leave it at that and move on. Now, a judgment is given in Abuja. Just the next day, another judge, Justice Agoma, in Bori, goes on garnishee orders. It raises a red flag, and it sends a warning. For some time, many people now use garnishes to harass other people. Garnishes are not meant for harassing people. In that case, the NJC found that a notice of appeal and a stay, motion for stay was already filed. Yet, that judgment was enforced. So these are commendable decisions of NJC. They are commendable, and I commend them. But I also think that they should do more.
Okay.
And where they find there should be no tolerance attitude to any judge that breaches the code of ethics of judges. They shouldn't be tolerated, because once justice fails in its place, the state or the country is gone. But that's the last hope of government. Okay, if politician has a problem, he will run to the court. If the judge has a problem, he will run to the court. If the lawyer has a problem, he will run to the court. The common man and the businessman. So if the court goes down, everything is gone.
All right, Senior Advocate, I'm happy you mentioned this, because almost like looking to my notes, because that's what I was processing. Look, the collapse of the judiciary definitely will lead to anarchy, because that's the last hope of the common man. But I also want to stay on the substance of the case, and whether or not when these judges commit these infractions, is there a way that the NJC itself gets ahead to check them without waiting for a petition? That's on one hand. Because I like what was written here concerning the judge in Anambra. He said he failed to adhere to the principle of stare decisis from his different interpretation of the word aspirant, and abused his judicial powers by granting an ex parte order without a motion or notice filed along with the originating summons. This is a top judge. And from lay people's perspective, we've seen a couple of these things happen. And it's so, my question is back to the fact that, must there be a petition before the NJC can act? Is there a way to just monitor things that go on within the sector and say, no, this cannot be right in law?
NJC is a creation of the Constitution. It's not created on the whims and caprice of perception of people, no. And the NJC is not a police organization that police people. The due process has to be followed. NJC does not originate, cannot and does not originate complaints and then begin to deliberate on it, no. There has to be an aggrieved party. If anybody is aggrieved, then such person makes a complaint. And that's all I can answer you. We should not move NJC from what the Constitution made it to be. And you know that it's headed by the Chief Justice of the Federation. So the Chief Justice of the Federation will now begin, is that what you're trying to say? Should now begin to leave very serious assignments and start going all over 36 states, checking what is this judge doing, what's unknown. No. Those judges also render returns and reports for assessment. So that's just the way it is. And Nigerians in the justice project, everyone is part of it. Recall some years back in Ghana, investigation of judges in Ghana. Over 30 judges were found to be wanting and published that, and all those judges were removed. Our journalists are also expected to be patriotic. Other Nigerians, workers and stakeholders in the judicial sector are expected to play their roles, so that every judge will know that, if I do anything wrong, I will pay for it. I will be sanctioned. And I take special attention to what NJC did with the judge in Anambra State.
Now with your
This is in Anambra State. In that case, NJC was saying you did not follow judicial precedent because showing that the era of judicial rascality is gone. A judge should follow precedent. The vexed issue of aspirants, the Supreme Court had laid it clear, laid the point to rest clearly. What is there for a judge to begin to interpret who is an aspirant? You look at the case, look at Section 285 of the Constitution, you know whether this is an aspirant or whether it is not an aspirant. There should be some certainty in the law, elementary law, certainty.
Now, Senior Advocate, with your reference to Ghana, one wonders if, what the NJC has done should not also be a clean sweep as well, particularly because of the continuous complaints about corruption in the judiciary. And I'm going to be specific now. How far-reaching was this NJC's decision on punitive action against erring judges, particularly because of reports that there are no fewer than 500 cases since September 6 before the Chief Judge of the Abuja High Court that have not been reassigned due to the challenge of vacation courts. And that on the one hand. On the other hand, the matter that befell 14 members-elect of the Edo State Assembly in 2019 has been merged in delayed administrative court processes since 2019. And, counsel for the affected members-elect say that the issues that have delayed their matter are interlocutory applications to delay the hearing of the substantive suit, amongst others. So if these are outstanding, this quantum of cases, how far-reaching has this NJC decision been? Has it been just minimal, or should it have, spread through the rank and file of the judiciary across states of the Federation to ensure sanity?
Well, generally, let me tell you, we have left Egypt. We have not gotten to Canaan. We're on the way to Canaan. The NJC has moved on. They've started doing a lot more work on these complaints, and they need the support and commendation of Nigerians so that they can continue. The present Chief Justice of the Federation was just sworn in a few weeks ago, and we can get this result. It tells you that we can get a lot more. But strictly speaking, let's not begin to destroy our judiciary also by our comments and our actions. Because a report was published, how verifiable are those reports? A council had an opinion that and all that. The NJC doesn't go into matters that are pending in courts. So when these types of reports and comments are made by council, they affect the integrity of the judiciary and the perspective of the judiciary. Our judiciary is still very good. Does it mean that there are no low sides or downsides? No, there are, but we still have a judicial system that we can look back to. So I want to say, yes, publish reports, but publish verifiable reports. And not only getting these verifiable reports, let them not be used to, just whitewash the judiciary, but let them be used by due process again. I can assure you, and I believe we will get to the right results. If you look at the comments you just lifted on, interlocutory, made by the interlocutory applications and all that. Interlocutory application is provided for in our constitution. So what does the agency do? Tear the constitution down just to please a party or some section of the society? No, they won't do that. They will follow cases and reports that come before them and follow them by due process. From what I've seen in this this set of reports now, decisions of the NDC, I think they will do well and do better as we go ahead.
Senior Advocate, we must thank you for your intervention. Perception, as you said, is key. And at the end of the day, what we're looking at is a bit of maybe more level of urgency, but around the law because of this perception. This is the last hope of the common man. So everybody's interested in how things progress in that sector. So maybe more than a sledgehammer is required this time to make sure that everybody is brought to order. I must thank you, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Paul Ananaba. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you.
All right, to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the economy. The federal government has presented a budget of almost 50 trillion, 47.9 trillion naira. Inflation has increased, food inflation has increased. A couple of things have increased. Well, there are gains and there are losses. We'll look at all sides of the conversation, the efforts of the federal government in all of this. But particularly, what is the impact of the 2024 budget as we prepare for 2025? Paul Alaje will join us after the break. Join us again.
Welcome back, and now we turn our attention to the economy to look at the budget presentation of 2025 estimates by Federal Executive Council last week. And we're going to have, the high points. Yes, you have the high points on the screen now. The oil revenue target of 19.6 trillion naira, projected non-oil revenue sources standing at 5.7 trillion naira, and budget benchmark for crude oil is $75 per barrel, and the exchange rate to the naira 1,400 naira to the dollar. Yes, that's it. You have it on your screen. And projected crude oil barrel per day production of 2.06 million per day. And you have the other high points there. So in line with the Fiscal Responsibility Act, maybe not so tidy as expected. It will be presented before the National Assembly shortly for consideration. So how realistic are these budget estimates in line with current realities, particularly because Nigeria is dependent on crude oil for its major revenue earnings? We have Mr. Paul Alaje joining us on the program. Of course, Mr. Alaje, you've seen the highlights. How realistic are these budget estimates in light of our current earnings as a nation, inflation, which has shot up to 33.2% now, the highest since January? So how realistic are these assumptions?
Yeah, thank you so very much for having me. And I want to also say good morning to everybody watching us around the world. First, I've seen the budget presented, estimates that is the proposal I'm expecting should go to the National Assembly by hopefully later this month or next month. So this budget is saying we'll be looking at an estimate of 47.9 trillion naira. That amount sounds really huge. But when we are looking at the amount we want to spend as budget, for us to have unison, we need to look at what are other countries doing. For instance, Nigeria is the largest country in terms of population in Africa, and of course, the largest in West Africa. Can we look at what Ethiopia is doing? Can we look at what other countries are doing, including South Africa, Egypt, and Angola? When you convert what we want to spend to the dollar, then you agree with me that this budget is in fact very, very low. I understand that the Central Bank of Nigeria is looking at exchange rate of 1,400. In a recent report by IMF have come to agree with some of us that said that Nigeria economy may not witness some sort of economic miracle if it continues in the current policy of flotation. IMF noted that in spite of implementing the policies that is market driven by the current administration, poverty, hunger, and deprivation seems to hold true. It also mentioned that some of these policies are not yielding the expected, the kind of result, if I can paraphrase, according to the report coming from IMF. So it's not only Nigeria that is faced with this economic quagmire, but countries or nations that have been badly affected with devaluation. So from the estimate that he said through MTF, it has been shown by 2025, 2026, 2027 that Naira will be at 1,400. Now, do I think that is realistic? Well, for me, if we are going to peg our currency, it may be realistic. But there is no way you will have 1,400. As at the time of this interview, we are seeing over 1,650 under the flotation policy. How therefore can we be talking of 1,400? Then you look at crude oil price. I think 75 is moderate. 75 is moderate. A lot of people are expecting IMF. The IMF and World Bank are expecting that this rate might even go up because of relative regional instability. But we should now realize that America will have a new president by January. And this president is, as mentioned, as part of the interview, that is going to make sure that wars that are going on in some part of the world end very quickly. If you look at what is being projected for crude production, reports revealed, and the report in this same MTF revealed that from January to July, the average production per barrel a day was 1.5 million. So if we have been doing 1.5 billion, in fact, the Bureau of Statistics revealed that the first quarter output was 1.4 million plus. And from that to January, it was 1.5 million. I understand from the report that some person stakeholders were discussed with. And these stakeholders had mentioned that we might be able to project to 2.1 million barrels production a day. I have a lot of worries that this would be a realistic projection. I think we should have been moderate. Look at what we projected for 2024 at over 1.8 million. We're unable to meet up with this target, even though we are still running 2024. I also understand that in recent time we hear that we might have done 1.8 million, but put it on an average from year end till date. I can tell you that we have not been able to do an average of 1.8 million, maybe at best 1.5, 1.6 million barrels. What happens when we say that we're going to generate some expected amount from crude or oil, and we're unable to do both quantity and price? Then definitely our total revenue will be badly affected. I look at government expected expenditure of about 47.9, part of which will be coming from debt. That will take significant proportion, I think about 13 trillion. And when you look at 13 trillion naira as part of debt service, it means we're looking at oil revenue and non-oil revenue to account for the rest. Now, when you look at debt service, the source of financing from the document is revealing we're going to be looking at both local and foreign. For me, to my mind, we might be doing beyond 13 trillion. And you might just want to wait and see whether we do above that or not. The reason is because I don't think if we don't achieve that 1,400 naira to the dollar by 2025, and we want to service our debt, especially foreign loan, it is very clear that we'll be doing more than that. But if we stay with what the numbers are saying today, then you know clearly that some of these projections at best might not be what we will expect. Well, maybe because it's still going to the National Assembly, there may still be some review, when it gets to the National Assembly. But for now, there are a few things that I think that may go the way government has looked at it. But clearly speaking, there are a number of things that I think we need to adjust this moment today.
All right, Mr. Alaji, I'm looking at some of the assumptions of the 2024 budget, comparing it to our current reality at the moment. As I know we'd assumed that we'll grow by 3.76%. Not this one. This is the latest one. I'm talking about 2024. We pegged exchange rate at 750 naira to a dollar. We know what it is today. We had pegged inflation rate at 21.4%. We know what it is today. I think oil production 1.7, we just did 1.8, so that's commendable, but the average is less than that because we're looking at average and we talk about oil prices. My interest at the end of the day is not just throwing budget, because what we realize when it comes to budgeting and planning is, for those of us who follow this space, it's easy for us to say, these are the estimates, these are the projections, these are the spendings, these are the revenues. How do we measure impact? Which is why I threw up this number. When 2024 was presented, these were the parameters that were presented as to assumptions and how the economy will fare. but look at what is our reality. So would you say that 2024 budget had a positive impact on the economy, so that we now look at how much impact or otherwise 2025 will be for the country?
Yeah, I remember that when 2024 budget was presented by Mr. President, I granted 2 separate interviews with your Noble station, one on this show, 2, it was with Kayla Megwa that I granted the second interview. And I said, 1, the projection for inflation will never be achieved. And you know, from beginning of this year, we have not been able to do anything around 20%. Inflation has been around 30%. I also mentioned that because of exchange rate, that we certainly get worse off in 2024, and this was benefit of hindsight now, because that conversation was in January. I said exchange rate will get worse off if care is not taken. By March it will be 1,500. As I talked to you, it's far above 1,500. That unemployment would increase. The impact should go to the life of people. Are we becoming poorer or are we becoming better? But World Bank says about 10 million people, not my word, World Bank chief that commended that we should continue with the policy, said in an interview with journalists that 10 million people have been added to poverty bracket in 2024. So if you keep that by one side, then you look at cost of energy. Your colleague, Mr. Shewon Kimbaloyi, interviewed the MD of Transmission Company of Nigeria, and he said that does it mean that you now have more power, or we have more electricity? If there is no more electricity and what we have before is what you are still managing to push to the public, how come you are charging more? The man said, have you seen what exchange rate is saying? And you can look at the clip, in your archive. Have you seen what the exchange rate is saying? What does that mean? Exchange rate certainly has impact on everything. Government has good intention all the time, but whether good intention is sufficient to bring us out of economic quagmire is a separate conversation entirely. To my mind, I think that to a large extent, 2024 budget has not performed optimally, not based on my yardstick, but based on what government has projected that it will do. It's expected to bring inflation down. It took inflation up. It's expected to reduce poverty. More people became poor. It is expected to reduce unemployment. More people, in fact, are out of jobs. And it's expected to have exchange rate at certain corridor. We are now doing worse than 100%, more than 100% worse of what is projected in that document. So when you ask if that has been done well, I would say that I have my concerns. And the report also revealed, I think till August, that less than 50% has been released to ministry and agencies of government. So if releases have some bottleneck and they have not been given as at the time expected, how can agencies of government implement projects that will help impact the life of people positively? And I think to a large extent.
Okay.
Oh dear.
We'll try to get back to Mr. Alaje.
Now we also need to review our budget. We can't.
Technology definitely not a silver bullet. That we always say this.
All right,
but I can hear you.
Okay, but go ahead. We're not hearing you at some point. Please go ahead, please.
Okay, so I said we must have that conversation very soon and take that decision as quick as possible. The reason is because if we say that we can present our budget to the National Assembly at any time, we've seen some president presented it some last week or 2 weeks to the end of the year. We've seen some presented it last month of the year, 2 months before the year. What is recommended is that budget should have been presented not later than first week of October. Why? So that the National Assembly, the civil society can look at what is in the document, and economists, I must say, look at what is in the document and provide guidance for the entire nation before the budget is passed. The thoroughness of and scrutiny of that budget is important. Why? That is our largest fiscal document. At the end of the day, when Nigeria is great, it's going to be great for all of us. If its economy is hard, then it's going to impact all of us. Why? We are Nigerians. We've got no other option.
And so, Mr. Alaje, whether it's timely presentation of the budget or the limit of spending as prescribed by the Fiscal Responsibility Act, one wonders if, the legislative arm, which is tasked with asking those questions, is asking enough of those questions, Mr. Alaji. And, I have good reason to ask that, because the fiscal deficit projected for 2024 amounted to over 15 trillion naira compared to what was projected for 2024, which is 13 trillion naira. And our, deficit has reached an alarming rate of 7.5%, which is grossly in excess of what the Fiscal Responsibility Act prescribes. Can we rely on the National Assembly to put those limits on spending? Can we afford another supplementary budget as we have seen in this 2024 Appropriation Act?
Well, unfortunately, we will have no option. There will be supplementary budget, not because of 2025 or 2024. It has become a pattern, at least in the last 10 years. There is hardly a year in the last 10 years that we have not had supplementary budget. And it's not a crime to bring supplementary budget to the Assembly. The question will be, what is the purpose? Are we fighting a war that we did not envisage before the year began? Or are we having critical infrastructure that we are implementing? Or when we are presenting budget because we want to pay salaries to workers, especially those in public sector, or we want to increase government recurrent expenditure, I tell you that the impact will be really, really negative, because when you spend on recurrent, you are technically increasing consumption. But when you spend on capital, you are promoting investment. What will impact our people more? Is it consumption or investment? The answer is obvious. It is investment. Again, and if the budget will be meaningful and you compare it at year end, your component, your investment component, because of the state of the economy that we have and our nation right now, the real capital component, and when I say real capital component, I'm not talking of providing vehicles for some public individuals or changing laptops. Those are important things. But I'm talking of key infrastructure, investment in rail, investment on road, investment on our air transport system, investment on our critical infrastructure and on education, investment on health. It must not be less than minimum of 40% because of the nature of our economy. In fact, we must sustain that real 40%. And I'm not talking of administrative capital expenditure. I'm talking of real capital expenditure. We must invest it not less than 40% consistently. You could see one of the states has tried to do between 40 to 50%. Everybody say, oh, the state is working. That state, among others, even though they have their own unique challenges, but they've been consistent in investing that amount on the state. We need to do that at the federal level. And when you check other nations who have now left their capital expenditure to 30%. You look at what they did, in their when they want to start writing their economic history. China, for instance, consistently invested 40% and now stayed at 30% consistently. This is not what we are seeing about Nigeria. In fact, when we say that we are making revenue projection and it did not come, and we are unable to borrow, when we borrow eventually, at the end of the year when we are having budget review, what we thought would be 70% or 25% for consumption usually increases. Why? Because our debt service may increase, among other things.
Just along the line of your thoughts, what should we be investing in? Because I am more interested in impacts, not just these numbers. You can say 20 trillion or 200 trillion is really not important to me, and I'm sure to Nigerians. Nigerians want to know how it will trickle down in terms of impact to their lives. So where should we be throwing our monies into right now that will give us that impactful, or that level of impact that can affect every Nigerian, not just a select few? Because another thing that a lot of people are no longer comfortable with, somehow, we have gone to bed and kind of relax and say, the Naira has found its level. And where is the level of the Naira? 1615. It's not going to work.
Well, Naira has no level. Anyone saying that Naira has found its level, they are not telling the complete truth. There is no level. If this has been the level of Naira, why has it not been there? The level you find Naira, if it's lower, it means your people will be poorer. If it's higher, your people might be richer. However, there can be a twist. If it's an economy that is producing most of the time, an economy that is exporting most of the time, even when Naira goes lower, it means that productivity once improves, you are going to see improvement in the life of your people. But if the what we call in our exports remains the same and you weaken your currency, I tell you that it will be poverty, hunger, and deprivation. Now, to your question directly, what should we be investing on? Key thing we should be investing on is rail and road, number one. Then we can look at education and health. I will tell you why these two are very, very important. Look at the recent report by the Bureau of Statistics. Even put inflation that we got a glimpse in the previous month that came down slightly or moderately. What did we see? Even urban inflation went higher. Why? It went higher because logistic challenges. It went higher because of insecurity. It went higher because of scales and the rural community and how we're going to move some of our farm output to the urban center where we have some of the population due to rural urban migration. If we don't do that, unfortunately, it's going to have negative impact on us. So the question is, we have seen what railway has done in the last administration. Remarkable progress from what the Nigerian railway used to be. Remarkable progress. And you can't blame President Buhari for everything. But you know that Warri Tape started and ended while he was in office. You can blame him also for so many things, which of course they are genuine and legitimate. But we saw Lagos-Ibadan rail project started and completed. You may want to blame President Jonathan for many things, but we saw Abuja-Kaduna rail project over 80% completed. And President Buhari did not say, oh, this is not a party member, he completed it. What must we then do? Rail, road, health, education, these are key things that we must do. But this alone, federal government will not achieve it. What I'm expecting is that when we have a development plan saying that we're going to be having private investment, help government to put a lot of effort in this. New administration has come. I am expecting this administration to adopt that document, invite private sector. We have done it in sports when Super Eagles want to play. We cause key players in private sector to support government so that we can have investment for Super Eagles. How do we do this when we saw what is happening to lecturers, HASU, NASU, NAT, when we have seen what is happening to our polytechnic, our students, when we have the same thing? So we need all assembly that can help us to come together and push, especially our power sector, which is the most singular, most important thing. If there is no power, in fact, the Holy Books, Quran and the Holy Bible says that when the Creator started creating the world, the first thing he said is, let there be light. I tell you, there will be no way forward if there is no light. No matter how much we try, if electricity is not available and affordable in high quality and quantity, then I'm sorry, we might just be having a conversation. And my northern friend, we call it Dogon Munchi. I hope that we don't make it go beyond that.
And that'll be a fine place to leave it, Mr. Paul Alaje. Thank you so much for coming on the program today and for your profound interventions, which we hope will sail through in terms of implementation. Mr. Paul Alaje is an economist who joined us virtually.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's a productive way to start off the week, even though I say so myself. And we hope that you join us again through the week when we bring you your perfect morning starter on television. I am Bukola Toka.
And don't forget, top of the hour is Sunrise Daily. Stay with Channels Television. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.